At $200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES. You're listening to the SNES podcast with your host, Soul Blazer.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Super NES podcast, episode number 223. I am Greg, joined always by Joe.
Hello.
And once again, we are honored to have a guest host with us, like in our special episode of the Super NES podcast. This time, it's the guest host who's been here in the past. Been a while since he was last here in the podcast, so it's always a pleasure to have Nick back on the podcast. So thank you again once again for joining us again, Nick.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for showing up.
And as you might be guessing, we're guessing where we are covering up indeed a pinball game on this podcast because Nick is our resident pinball expert. So we only get him around to sound very smart and educated on these kinds of games. So, there are not many pinball games that are released for the system, and even less that came out in the U.S. So as it is with this game, we had to go to a Japanese-only game. But luckily, being pinball, Japanese is not a problem. As a matter of fact, except the title screen, I don't even remember seeing any Japanese in this game. But everything else was in English. So
I mean, there's kanji symbols all over the playfield.
Yeah, that's true. But an English speaker can play the game without any problems. So
Correct.
It's like the point I'm trying to get across. So anyway, that's a long-winded way of saying this is probably going to be our last pinball game on the podcast because there's only like a couple pinball games left. And the remaining ones are very dubious quality. Like I think it's like a Kirby tie-in pinball game also, and maybe a couple one or the two oddity games out there. But this is the last major pinball game in the system, and this is a game. This is a game that many people consider to be the best pinball game on the system actually, which we'll get into here in a moment. But we're covering Jaki Crush in this episode, which is name may imply is the third game of the so-called Crush series pinball games. The first two being Alien Crush and Devil's Crush. So neither of those two games came out with Super NES. So, Joe, I don't know if you have an experience playing either one of those two games in the past.
So I do have experience with Demon Crush, but I played it as Dragon Crush on the Sega Genesis. I only later discovered the TurboGrafx-16 Demon Crush and Alien Crush, and I still have yet to really dive into Alien Crush, but of course Demon Crush, once I booted that ROM up and I noticed that it's basically Dragon Crush, I was very familiar with it and thoroughly enjoyed the game.
Okay. I did not play either Aliens Crush or Devil's Crush back when they were new, but I have since then played both games in emulation. I think both games are very good. So, Nick, do you have an experience like those two games?
Yeah, similarly to you, I didn't play them when they were new, but I have played them recently, and I also think they're pretty good. Interesting games. That's for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they are very different. But they are very different takes. They are very different takes on pinball for sure. So, all the games for the Crush series were developed by a company called Compile, which we have not covered yet in this podcast. So we'll mention them a little bit. Diehard gamers may recognize the name Compile because Compile did develop some of the best games for the NES in some people's opinions. They were around from 1982 to 2003. They're probably best known for having done the Puyo Puyo series. Puzzler games, which Sega published for them. Compile never actually published anything themselves. They always, they were simply a developer who let other game companies publish games for them. they're probably best known for having done the hit NES game. Well, it wasn't a hit at the time, but it's become like a cult favorite. The Guardian Legend for the NES, which is a great game.
Oh,
So
cool.
they also developed Joe. If you played it, the very first Godzilla game, like in the NES, Monster of Monsters.
Yeah, they also have a hand in Blazing Lasers, which is, in my
Very
opinion,
good shooter. Yep.
probably the best shooter on the TurboGrafx 16. So
Yep.
yeah,
So, but so yes, the company had a mixed track record, but they definitely did make some very good games for sure. So. And the Crush series was published. The Crush series was originally published in Japan by a company called Naxat Soft. That's Naxat, who was around from 1988 to 2015. Most of their games were Japan only, so not really too much. There's not really too many games out there. Other games that we're familiar to American, to American players. With the possible exception, of very popular PC Engine TurboGrafx 16 shooter game, called Psychosis. So, but anyway, yeah. So, Alien Crush came out first, 1988. That was originally like a PC Engine / TurboGrafx 16 game. It was later ported to the Virtual Console, the PlayStation Network, and also in Japan only, curiously enough, like on the 3DS. So. The Virtual Console options, however, and PlayStation options have way been shut down. So if you want to play this game nowadays, you have to either do it like the emulation or track down a North American TurboGrafx 16 copy of the game, which last time I checked is not cheap. Those copies, those games go for a pretty penny these days.
yeah.
It's definitely one of the more rare and more valuable TurboGrafx 16 games out there. So. Devil's Crush came out a year later, and it came out in 1990. It came out with the TurboGrafx 16 originally as well too. Then, as Joe mentioned, it also got a port on Genesis later on, and was also available in the Virtual Console for a while before being delisted off of that. There also was a remake of Alien Crush called Alien Crush Returns, which came out for the Wii in 2008. So. It did not, however, get the best reviews, in the game that came out, unfortunately. So this is probably the end of the series as far as that goes. Jaki Crush itself was only available in Japan, only available like the Super Famicom. It came out in 1992. So. You do have some options available to you in this game, like you do with the first two Crush games. When the game starts, you're able to do a config screen to change the various options. You also are able to enter a password into this point. They want to continue to play it later on, because there is a story / game objective, which we'll cover in a moment. But that's what the password feature for. You also can play either one player, 2-player alternating, or 2-player co-op, which is again kind of similar to some of the options that the previous Crush games did offer you in that series. So the overall objective in this game is you're trying to earn 1 billion points. Once you do that, you're able to see the ending of the game. So that's what that's primarily what the password's for. It takes everything I saw online. I did not do this myself. I'm just saying, from everything I saw online, later in research, and it takes about 10 hours on average for somebody to get 1 billion points in this game too.
Whoa!
So, it's a pretty serious high commitment. I mean, I appreciate which is both good and bad. I think I appreciate the fact that the pinball game actually has an ending, and it's nice to have a game that you actually sit down with for a while, make progress on, get your passwords, leave it, and go on and resume, come back later on. But this is not your typical sit down, play for half an hour pinball game either. So that reason as well too. So. Very curious design here. I'll definitely ask you guys later on what you think about that. But it plays very similar to the past Crush games. There's various tables. To access. All have a very different demonic / underworld look to them. The stages are huge. They scroll from top to bottom as you go through the play field. There are bonus rooms that you can access, and also that you can access like and also like other things to it. So I'm going to ask Joe here in a moment for his thoughts on the game before I hand it off to Nick, because I'm sure Nick will have a lot more to say on this than we do. But he's always great at explaining the pinball mechanics and whatnot. But the ball physics in this game, I thought were kind of a mixed bag. I was struggling for a while to try to find the best way to describe it for me. I thought on the negative side, the ball control was very difficult. I really had a hard time with this game trying to control where the ball trying to aim the ball like where I wanted to go to. However, to offset that, I thought on the plus side, the game seemed very forgiving to you, easy in some areas because it seemed like compared to some tables, at least when I played, the ball very rarely went down the side drains for me. So I was able to keep playing for a long time, which is good. Because, like I said before, I had a hard time trying to get the ball like to where I wanted the ball to go to. So the Super NES, I think, struggles a bit trying to handle this game. I did notice the limited resolution of the graphics. While the graphics I thought were very detailed, they are very limited in resolution. There was some slowdown and or clunkiness to the gameplay for sure. The music also I thought was also just It wasn't quite as good as the previous Crush games. I thought it was fine for what it was, but again, I thought I think the developers pushed the system to its limits with this game, and I kind of wonder why this had Super NES was the target platform in this game as opposed to TurboGrafx / PC Engine, which were the first two games the series came out on originally. So I don't know what the design decision was for that, but it does seem like the Super NES maybe wasn't the best system to handle this game. So all in all, I thought it was a good game. I definitely do not agree it's the best pinball game in the system, but I think. But I definitely thought that anybody who enjoyed the previous Crush games definitely should check this out. And before I hand it off, I will say, as usual, the Japanese name for this game is very awesome sounding. Because the Japanese name of this game is it's Jaki Hakai, which translates to evil demon destruction. So once again very cool naming rights there for Japanese, but. Joe, what do you think about this game overall?
So, I actually think the game looks pretty damn good. I was actually surprised that it ran as smooth as it did because of how the graphics looked. The 3 levels that you have are cool when you can actually access all of them. I spent a lot of time on the first level, occasionally hitting the second level, and then very, 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 very seldom hitting the third level.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I thought the music was okay. It definitely sets the mood. I was more impressed by the voice samples.
Yes,
and
yeah.
That creepy laugh after you lose a ball reminded me of Ganon's laugh in Zelda 2. Part of it is crushing because you lost your ball and the game's laughing at you, but it's also a motivator to hit the start button and go again and get further and get that 1 billion points, which, by the way, spoiler, I did not get 1 billion points. Jaki Crush is more than a sum of its parts. This game really represents, I think, both classic pinball mechanics and video pinball mechanics all in one. And of course, it's got the bad guys and the bosses, which just add to that. Tip for anyone out there, definitely kill all the purple demons on the first level as much as you can, because they supply ball saves, and you're going to need those ball saves, especially if you're going to play this for any extended period of time.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of trial and error for me. So one of the things I put in my notes is that there are 3 levels to the board, and as you fumble along, you'll learn how to unlock new openings in secret areas. And I completely mean that. This game just drops you in and you play. Whether you have experience with the former games or not, it doesn't instruct you where you have to go and I kind of harping back to like Sonic Spinball, where it kind of gives you a goal and you gotta, it kind of points you in the direction you gotta go. This is like your typical, I can't even say typical pinball machine, because a typical pinball machine would also direct you in kind of where you need to go and would lay out those objectives.
You would at least have instructions at the corners you could look at to see, like,
right. Then you're kind of blind here. But it's fun. I absolutely enjoyed my time with it. It's a mixed bag because of the fact that like Jaki Crush can last 5 minutes, or it can last you a half hour, 45 minutes, maybe longer. I was definitely in the first part of that. Spent most of my time, 5-10 minutes if I was lucky. I didn't think like the physics were all that bad. I treated this like a video pinball game, not a pinball game. So I guess I was more forgiving as far as some of that stuff. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. And the only complaint I have about this game compared to the others, since I do have experience with the previous games, excuse me, is I felt this game felt really cramped. And I just felt really claustrophobic, whereas the other games felt really open. Now,
I think it's through the limitations of the Super NES.
So I was thinking not only limitations, but also, because, like Devil's Crush is so wide open compared, you can really go about and do what you got to do, and you can make, moves and everything else. And I just think this is pure chaos on a cart. And like I said, it's not a bad thing. It's definitely fun to experience, and I enjoyed every bit of it. So.
Okay. Unfortunately, I wasn't. Unfortunately, I was not able to. Unfortunately, I was not able to experience this game 2-player, because I'm sure that, like most of the games, it does the enjoyment factor would be greater playing with somebody else. So,
I also bet there would have been a lot of slowdown and stuttering.
Probably. Yes, there probably would have been that for that too. So, like probably not 2-player, probably not regular 2-player, because that's like take turns.
Yeah, that's true.
But 2-player versus, there probably would have been.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, okay, Nick, you've heard our thoughts, and you're the one who knows the most about pinball here. What was your overall impressions like on this game?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of things that you both said. Having some experience with Alien Crush and Demon Crush, I kind of knew what to expect. I thought the physics were pretty comparable to those, despite being on a different platform. And the playfield size is pretty impressive for the lack of slowdown that the Super Nintendo encountered. I think the last game that we played was that licensed Namco game. Was that right? Yeah. That one had a ton of slowdown in comparison.
Yeah.
So I was pretty pleased with that. It is sort of a segmented playfield, so there's 3 different kind of playing areas, and I too spent most of my time in the lower one. And I found that there were certain things, certain goals that could be achieved. I didn't realize the link between the purple demons and the ball save mechanics. So thanks for that, Joe.
No problem. I spent so much time down there, I figured it out.
That's good. I was trying to piece together what I could of the rule set with the time that I had to play it. And that was one. I was like, I'm not really sure why the outlanes are blocked, but they are, and that's great. So do the purple demons also bring the shrine up between the flippers, the pop-up post?
I think so.
I want to say yes, but I think I remember getting sucked into a hole and like going into something and playing like a quick little like mini game before I came back out, and the face was gone and it was just those posts.
So those posts come after you destroy the face enough times, but not the
Okay.
face, the little bean that floats
Yeah,
around.
yeah.
And no, there's like a post that shows up between the flippers, and it's in the shape of a shrine. There is also another much larger shrine on the second playfield area, and so one thing I wasn't sure of is if you have to destroy that shrine before it appears between your flippers, or if there's something on the lower area. I couldn't figure that out.
Yeah,
But
I just kept killing the purple guys, and it blocked the side ones, and eventually I had one in the middle, and I was just like, okay, cool.
yeah, maybe it's all down there. I don't know.
Maybe.
But yeah, so talking about kind of the gameplay and the mixture of kind of the video and the physical, I think the series does a pretty good job. It's fairly well regarded in the pinball community, this series overall, for the gameplay aspects and the unique graphics and all that kind of stuff. And this is another entry in the same series, so it's got a lot of those same characteristics. One of the things that's pretty interesting about it is the way that the kind of video pinball aspect items interact with the ball. The ball never rolls over much of anything without being diverted in some way. So there are indicators like rollover buttons that appear in the in lanes or out lanes that are flames. There's a little kind of column that you can roll through on the second play field that's the same way. But almost everything else that I encountered diverted the ball some way, and that includes that weird floating bean demon thing on the lowest play field, which can be frustrating and the source of a lot of drains if you're aiming for that frequently, which I wanted to see, what happened when you cleared that. So if you hit that a certain number of times, the spectral demon face in the middle of that playfield solidifies, and then you shoot a ball in that demon's mouth, and then it explodes and turns into 3 pop bumpers instead, which is pretty cool. And those 3 pop bumpers remain for the rest of that game, those 3 balls that you play. The slingshots on this game, so they act just like slingshots on a regular game. A slingshot is an arrangement of 3 posts with a rubber ring around them, and a solenoid pulls in and pushes this little arm against that rubber ring and shoves the ball away. So that's the mechanical action that happens on a physical pinball machine. In these games, the slingshots are always something weird, and in this case, it's some kind of alien bug demon thing. And if you hit them enough, their chest explodes into a bunch of bats that you can roll over and squish. So pretty interesting. The lower section has demons that can walk around as well, aside from the purple creatures, which Joe mentioned, and that big spectral demon with the bean that floats back and forth. There's also a dragon with a couple of different heads, and if you manage to get one of their mouths open somehow and shoot the ball into it, it'll take you to a bonus room. So one that I got into, the lowest head, I don't know if it's always the same room depending on the head, but the lowest head took me to a room where you have to break a bunch of demons out of ice, and then you have to destroy the demons once they're broken out of ice. I did not complete that challenge. And once you drain out of that bonus room, luckily you're just returned back to regular play. On the second play field, there are various smaller walking demons, and then that large shrine that I mentioned that I believe you can destroy, and then I think maybe it appears between your flippers, but I don't know. There's also a staircase behind the left flipper on that second playfield section. Did either of you manage to get the ball into there?
I think I did once. I don't remember what happened. It wasn't. I think it takes you. For like when I recall, I'll take to a bonus room.
Okay. It looked very intriguing, but I could never manage to get the ball in there very well.
Like I said before, I thought it was very hard to aim the ball to where you wanted to go to in this game. So
Yeah,
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of luck.
the design of that second playfield area in particular is really tricky unless you can get the ball on the right flipper, and then it's much easier to get it up into the third section. If you're on the left side, which you are most of the time, at least I was, there's precious little to shoot for except for a larger demon, which kind of blocks your way over by the right flipper. So it kind of acts as a kickback, and so it kicks the ball back towards that right flipper. So you got to be ready to flip pretty quickly. The third playfield, the uppermost one, is the most interesting, and that has a bunch of demons kind of chanting and walking around a statue of a different demon. And you can hit all these little demons, and once you do, a new set of demons will appear out of one of 4 different areas. There are 2 holes that are down by the flippers in this area, which are blocked off by demon hands, I guess. And after you clear the second wave of those circling demons, then the hand removes from one side and another set of circling demons comes out, and then the fourth, another set of demons comes out. Once you clear the 4th round, then the statue in the center explodes into a different demon. And this one is active. It's no longer a statue. At that point, I lost my ball, so I don't know what happens, but it was cool looking for a second. The other thing, if you sink a ball into each of those kick-out holes that are covered by those demon hands, then it starts a 2-ball multi-ball. And this was the only multi-ball I was able to luck my way into in this game in the time that I had. Did either of you manage to get a multi-ball rolling?
I never did, but then again, I wasn't very good at this game either. So
All right. Well, let me tell you, you're not missing very much, because here's how that goes. The camera, in order to maintain speed, will decide which ball is the primary ball and then ignore the other one completely. So your camera follows that one ball, but you have no idea what's going on with the other one while it's in play. And of course, they're both active at the same time, so it's pretty challenging to keep them going. So what happened is, for me, the first ball drops down to the first play field, and I'm fighting to keep it alive. The second one, I'm just flipping every once in a while, hoping it's still up on that top play field. But of course, it was slowly making its way down to me. And then I lost the first ball, and it did a bonus countdown like I had lost my entire, ball in play. So I was like, that's a unique multi-ball rule. And then the game resumed with that other ball still in play. Not, there wasn't another one to launch. It was just, following that last one. So when I lost that one, it did another bonus countdown. Very weird. But it was interesting. I did find that was really super confusing. So I don't know if I just performed so poorly that the game just didn't expect that I would do that badly, or what exactly. But anyway, the only other big note that I have about gameplay is that there's a match sequence. So in a traditional pinball game, when there's a match sequence, it matches the last 2 digits or last 3 digits of your score or last single digit. And when it matches the random number that it comes up with, you get a replay. So you get to play again. Well, obviously, the replay has no meaning in this game because you're not putting in quarters in order to play it. So instead, it gives you an extra ball. And I matched once, and that was on the one fantastic game that I had. and got an extra ball, and that was very exciting. That's the only way I was able to get an extra ball. And then I immediately lost it, but the thought was there, and that was exciting. So my best score was just under 1 million points, and I thought that was pretty good. But 1 billion points to finish the game is feels unachievable.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I think I got like 750,000, somewhere close to there. You know.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. Like, when I saw that like 1 billion was the target, I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna play this and have fun. I'm not gonna attempt to beat it.
Yeah.
Hence the online estimate of it being like 10 hours of gameplay roughly to get to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I do think I didn't realize that there was, and this is, lack of reading apparently on the main screen, but I didn't realize there was password entry.
Yes.
So that makes a huge difference, especially if your score carries through
There are
those
some
passwords.
there are some special passwords that you can use also, which I mentioned here toward the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
So.
How do you trigger the password to that? Does it give you one at the end of each session? Like, how do you get the password to enter?
Well, for me, it just gave me a password just like after it was game over. So
okay, that's the lack of reading and observation on my part. So. Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes it much more manageable. I will say that at almost 1 million points, I was like, wow, that was like game of my life.
Right.
I'll never come anywhere close to that again. But yeah, if the score carries over, that's huge. That would make a big difference. Or if certain, achievements within the game carry over. So like completing that demon face, for example, would be a big deal. So anyway, I found it very interesting. The mechanical portions felt very good to me, like the way that the ball moved within the pop bumper cluster that appears in place of that spectral demon face, even though it's right above the flippers, which is a very challenging area if that were on a physical machine. It felt really good, and I rarely had an issue with the ball rolling out of there in a weird way that was unrecoverable. I did have a couple of what pinball players like to call power drains, where the ball just flies straight down the middle. But they were fairly rare. So as Joe was saying, it was if you could keep the ball in that lower area and really focus on your shots, it was pretty forgiving overall with the side drains blocked off and all that. And I guess one of those purple demons also opens the lane back to the launcher, to the shooter lane.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I did that a couple times and I couldn't figure out the reason for it, but that makes a big difference too, and it's always an exciting event to be able to relaunch your ball. The plunge on this game though is kind of weird in that it angles up into that second play field, so right away you're kind of not at ease with what's happening in the game, because the camera obviously has to cut to that second area as it launches. So it's a little interesting at first, and until you kind of get used to that concept. But yeah, overall very fun game. Really interesting. Lot of demons walking around that need crushing in some way. So I was happy to play this. So thanks for suggesting it.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, the name definitely matches the overall theme of the game for sure. So
yeah.
Yes, I had no problem with that.
And I just wanted to add one more thing. Sorry. One other thing that I meant to mention that was in my notes and I totally forgot. I did like that the nudge buttons were the left and right buttons on the shoulder, and for the most part, if you nudge it left or right, it did a pretty good job of like hitting that wall on that side. So you could actually do some pretty good ball saves just by nudging, which is one of those nice little aspects that, if you're on a really good run, nudge, nudge, nudge.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. 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 I definitely agree. So, um, uh, despite the fact this was a Japanese-only game, a lot of Western magazines, web magazines, publications did review the game back when it came out in 1992. So they got very mixed receptions from them. With many of the pros and cons that we've already talked about in this podcast being the same ones that these people mentioned. Just to give you some examples, computer video games gave like 70 out of 100. Game Fan gave it 306 out of 400. Joystick gave 62%, and so on and so on. So more modern reviews have been definitely been higher on the game. Which is why I said before that many people consider this to be one of the best pinball games in the system. But I think a lot of people compare this game to the previous Crush games, which I know is not always the fairest thing to do, but it's the easiest way to draw comparisons. And a lot of people back then considered this game to be the weakest game of the trilogy. But not everybody. There were a couple. There were a couple magazines that considered to be the best game in the series. So that being the worst was not was definitely not shared by everybody. So I think part of the problem is that we're trying to make a third game in the franchise with very similar theming and ideas and whatnot. You can't really. It's hard to reinvent things too often. So a lot of this game does. I totally can see the feeling people had that a lot of this game just borrowed from the past games. Really wasn't too original. So I thought there was never original stuff in this game to be entertaining, but I think that playing the games back to back, I think probably because these games did come out in a relatively short period of time back then. 3 games in 4 years. I think I definitely could also see where someone's coming from that side.
Mm-hmm.
So Nick, overall, I know you said like this game, but how would you compare this to other pinball games you play in the system? Would you think this is like one of the best games on there?
As far as ball physics, I would say yes. There are fewer interesting things to do within this game from a video aspect than, for example, that Namco game that we played, where there was seemingly a lot of unique things to do and a lot more variety. But as far as actual pinball feel, this is by far preferable to some of the other games that I've played on the system, for sure.
Joe, how about you?
I mean, I think this is actually a very good addition to the series of games. I would probably put this third.
Okay.
By the way, I said it was Dragon's Crush. It's Dragon's Fury on the Genesis.
Yeah, they renamed it. They renamed it like the North American release. So
yeah. So I mean, Demon's Crush is I don't know. That's got to be the pinnacle of the series. So it's not better than that, but the adaptation that was on the Genesis, it's pretty close. And I know it's Demon's Crush just converted to Dragon's Fury, but I don't know. I like this game. You should definitely check it out. Don't be discouraged. And you know what? If you play it for 5 minutes, you lose all your balls, but you had a good time, you can thank me later.
Yeah. Well, obviously, emulation is the only way you're going to play this game unless you actually track down a cart, which would we're getting to car pricing here. Car price here later a bit. So, it's hard for me to say which which of the Crush games I like the most. I think for me personally, Alien Crush is still my favorite because that game was the first one I played, and because the whole idea behind it was new and fresh to me at the time. Whereas like Devil's Crush and Jaki Crush, I thought I didn't bring too much to the table. Not that it was a bad thing. It's just like I think that Alien Crush was so different that really like made an impression on me, and for that reason, so my favorite of the series. And I think all three games in the series are pretty good. So definitely a very different take on pinball for sure. One that we don't really see too often over here in the West. So like I definitely was happy to have an excuse to finally play this.
Yeah, I mean, the only other pinball game that I can really say that I enjoyed outside of the Crush series was Kirby's Pinball for the Game Boy.
Okay, yeah.
Fantastic pinball game. But it's a totally different beast. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, as far as, playing on a console, it's got to be the Crush series. I can't think of, like, even Crew Ball, in my opinion, is not a great pinball game. It's fun, but it's not a great pinball game.
Okay, yeah, sure. But all right, so I guess that works for final thoughts, Joe. Before we move on with passwords and eBay and that other stuff that end things up, you have any like final thoughts that you want to say, like about the game or pinball, like overall, Nick?
Pinball's fun, and so is this game.
That works.
Yeah. If you get a chance, give it a shot. If you're a fan of the other games in the series, definitely give it a look. And if you're just interested in seeing an alternate take on a pinball layout, this is even devoid of any of the graphical flourishes that the game presents. It is definitely an interesting geometric setup that you don't see in physical reality often, or in other video pinball aspects. So worth a look.
I definitely would. I definitely do agree with all that. So there's a bunch of passwords you can use in this game to give yourself a leg up. Various passwords you can find online, which charge you up with like various point levels and also like number of balls to start off with. One password I have here is search you up as high. I feel like it's made 85 balls. So you'll be able to,
that would do it.
So yes, you'll be able to play for a while if you use that password. There's a password. There's one password that you can use that starts you off of 999,999,000 points. So you only need 900 more points to be able to get we reach the billion point level. That can see the ending of the game.
Yeah, Crush End. What a creative password.
Yes. Unfortunately, the ending's not very much. The ending is all Japanese. So, it's all just like some static screens. It looks like what I can see online. So you're not missing very much. But
yeah, it's static screens with a bunch of Japanese text, which I did not understand.
Nope.
So it really kind of killed it for me. Thank God the game's fun to play because there's, for us at least, there is no story.
All right. Some other. So there's a few other useful passwords. There's one password that adds level select, like the option menu, which is nice. There's one password that kind of works like the cue ball and pool, and it allows you to move the ball like on the table that you want to, which is also which is also like very handy for setting up like certain shots. And there's also another password which you want to, I don't know why you would, but if you want to, it makes most of the table black and white. So, so if you prefer to play it that way, you can do that too. So,
I guess that works if you're colorblind.
Maybe black and white makes some of the more details pop out more, possibly.
Maybe.
I guess that's the only possible reason I can see for having it in, because because this is like because this is like the '80s. Like for those like those old times out there like myself, you may remember the early video game systems like the Atari 2600 and the television had black and white switches as well color switches on them to play the games in black and white because everybody back then had a color TV set. So. But that went away in the '80s, so it's like I don't know why anybody would bother with that now, but it's there. So
maybe it's just a graphical filter and it just looks cool.
Yeah. Yep. That's also yep. All those like very viable guesses. So, eBay. You can find the game on eBay. It's not super common, but there are copies out there like available for purchase. At the time of doing research, there were 25 copies of this game. This game they're currently listed. 9 copies of the game that recently sold. I usually limit these searches only to copies available in North America. However, since it was an import title, I also I did this search worldwide to try to cast in as much of it as possible because I suspect that most copies were only available in Japan, which is true. But there are some North American sellers who are selling the game also. So. And like most Japanese-only games, there are available repros of this game as well. They want to save some money. People have mocked up what the game would look like, possibly would look like with a very North American-ish looking label, and also burned onto a regular Super NES card, so you can just plug into your Super NES system or system whatever and play that way. In case you don't have like a Redcon or any other system out there which can play Japanese games. So that's a nice touch. The repos were only available in card only. These prices include shipping, by the way. The repos were being sold for $25. So. Card only, the prices were not that bad considering this is kind of like a more like uncommon game and the Japanese only. Card only prices of this game for having sold recently range from $37 to $42. So, and CIB copies of the game, if you wanted to go that route, are sold anywhere from $65 to $92. So, a little bit more pricey for Super NES stuff, but not that bad. Like all things considered, I thought.
Yeah.
So, so if you want a copy of the game, it's not too expensive to get it. And like I said before, except for the ending, almost the entire game looks in English, or if you really don't need to know in Japanese to play it. So you definitely can enjoy this as it stands. So, it's too bad. Too bad we haven't seen a collection of these games.
Mm-hmm.
But both Compile and Axesoft out of business at this point. I don't know really who has the rights to them anymore these days. Unfortunately, it's caught with like older games because games developed by older companies which have now gone bankrupt. Their rights obviously they're going with somebody, but the company who has the rights nowadays may not even know they have the rights. Right. Because that's a problem. That's a problem they felt the computer game System Shock, if anyone out there has played it for a very long time, where it's like a liquidator company had the rights to the game for a long time and didn't even acknowledge it. So I'm sure somebody has the rights to Crush series these days, but they either don't care or don't even know they have the rights apparently. So I think a collection of this game would probably do very well. For sure, but
apparently a company called Aki, AIKY, took over much of what had been Compile's company, and they own the rights to all of Compile's games.
That's assuming, however, that Compile kept the rights to the Crush series and the publisher didn't have them. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because sometimes sometimes that can happen too. So would be nice maybe like someday, but a friend recently did like turn me on to another game on Steam that came out recently that is very similar to the Crush series. Did you guys play Demon's Tilt?
Yes, I was going to mention that.
Very good game. Very obviously inspired by the Crush games. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I actually had that on the Switch. It's so much fun.
Yeah. So, so you're looking for like a more like modern, like a modern like crush style pinball game. Definitely by all means check it out. The game currently is on Steam for $20, but it does go on sale frequently. So, you could probably like pick it up like pretty cheaply. There's also apparently an older. Is this game older? Hold on a second. Let me look. Demon's Tale came out in 2019. There's there's a, there's a pinball game. Okay, get this new one. The same developer is also working on another pinball game currently in early access, which is called like Xenotilt. So that also looks like pretty promising.
I sense a theme.
But so I don't buy anything like So I don't buy anything like early access anymore these days because I get burned like one too many times. But when the game does come out early access, for sure I'll check it out.
So the obvious next step will be Jackie's Tilt.
Yeah. Assuming they can use the name, which they probably could, but anyway, yeah. So very fun pinball game. Glad to check it out with the podcast. As always, Nick, we very much appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule.
Absolutely.
To come here with us and talk about this with us. So thank you. So thank you once again, sir. What projects, websites, podcasts, whatever you're working on currently that you'd like to plug?
So many. Where to start? Well, first, thanks very much for having me on. I really appreciate getting a chance to talk with you all about these fun games, and especially ones that I haven't had a chance to experience previously, like Jaki's Crush. I am a manufacturer of physical pinball games, and you can learn more about my kind of vampire-themed game called Drained at drainedpinball.com. And the other games that I make for pinball platforms and computers and other things like the Playdate, that little portable console with a crank, and other podcasts that I do are all at my company's website, which is foramusementonlygames.com. So yeah, come check it out if you like.
Okay, awesome. And Joe, where can listeners find you at?
All the typical places. I'm on X, JOESUX30. You can Google me or the podcast, and Radical Retro Roundup. And you'll find it. Go listen. It's been a fun revival. We've officially hit a year. And it's weird. Like, I think, Greg, we've been doing this for 3-4 years now. It doesn't even feel like it's been that long.
About 3 years, I think, at this point.
Yeah. And it's like George and I just killed a year, and like it didn't even feel like it.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Ain't that the truth?
But all right, awesome. Well, thank you again. We'll have you back at some point, I'm sure, Nick. Like I said before, I think we're pretty much tapped at pinball games to cover, except the really obscure or not very good ones. But there are many other good Super NES games you probably have experience with. So we'll find something suitable to bring you back to the podcast for.
Sounds good. I look forward to.
So next to the podcast, with I believe this is our last game of the our last covered game of the year, Joe, if I remember correctly. Next to last game of the year. We're going to be covering another franchise, like we did recently with that crazy franchise. We're going to be looking at the King of the Monsters games on the Super NES, which are ports of the very famous Neo Geo games, and there was 2 of them, I believe, Joe.
Yep, 2.
Okay, yeah, all right. So those are fighting kaiju games, clearly inspired by Godzilla. So I remember playing them in the arcade and Neo Geo, and they were like very good. I've never played the Super NES version, so I'm curious to see how much they got watered down, but probably a lot.
I'm gonna say it's probably better than the Genesis version.
I did not know there was Genesis support as well. Okay.
Yeah, I think that there was only one, I believe, for the Genesis.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to do a quick Google. I'll tell you.
Okay, sounds good. Anyway, yeah. So we will be back next time. Next time with you, like for that podcast. Like, so stay tuned. This will be my first time playing those games, and probably, and I think Joe's first Super NES experience playing those games as well. So we're both going to come to this with pretty fresh perspectives.
Yeah, the second game was released for the Genesis, so we didn't even get the first game.
Okay, all right, sounds good. But all right, well, as always, thank you very much for giving us a few minutes of time, like out there. We very much appreciate it. You know, and we'll catch you again later on. Stay safe, be well, and take care, everybody.
Bye.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man.
Now you're playing with power.